I warmly welcome everyone. Who here has ever spoken into this type of microphone as a presenter or had the chance to use one anywhere? It's a very interesting thing. Janos just pointed out to me to be careful not to end up like that one pilot who, while flying the plane, gives the usual announcement before landing and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, if you look out the window, you can see the wonderful panorama. It's 28 degrees, beautiful sunshine. Thank you for choosing us. Have a pleasant time." Then he forgets to turn off the microphone and continues. "I'm so tired. I'll have a coffee. Then I'll deal with that stewardess." And of course, everyone in the cabin hears this. And one of the stewardesses starts hurrying toward the cockpit between the rows of seats to let them know what's going on. At this, one of the passengers grabs her hand and says, "Wait, he hasn't even had his coffee yet." Janos said that now it's live, so I really need to pay attention to what I say. I see a lot of familiar faces, but I also notice that there are some people here whom I have the opportunity to meet for the first time. Specifically, who here has already attended any of my presentations? And now I can take a look at the other group as well. Who is honoring me with their presence for the first time today? Wonderful. One more quick question. Who among you here has already read my book, and who hasn't? Wonderful. Thank you very much. So, you've come to my Happiness Can Be Learned presentation. My first question is obvious. Who among you here is happy? Then why did you come? So it can still be improved? All right. Then my next question is, if you have paper, feel free to take notes. And if you don't, just answer it in your head on a scale from 1 to 10. What score would you give yourself for happiness? The eyes are the mirror of the soul. When I look around, many people have an expression like the misfortune mentioned in the national anthem. And the thing is, those of you who are here do not represent the Hungarian average. And yet even here, I see that there are quite a few of you who would like to feel better in your own skin, and that's perfectly normal. This is completely normal. I spend a lot of time on this topic, observing people on the street, in restaurants, and everywhere. I go, I pay attention to how much they are really living, how happy they are, how comfortable they feel in their own skin. What I see is that for most people, for someone who is seeing me for the first time, their eyes might widen at first, like, oh my God. So I tend to express myself quite directly. So maybe the way I see it, I think a lot of people tiptoe all the way to the grave. They pity themselves out of life. So basically they were born. Somehow we'll just get through this, and then one day the curtain comes down. This is such a luxury compared to the wonderful gift we've been given, our life, that we simply cannot allow ourselves to do this. And that's why I gave today's talk the title, Happiness Can Be Learned. Let's take a look at where we stand in Hungary compared to the international field. What do you think, out of 100 people in Hungary today, how many would voluntarily say that they are very happy? 2? 10? Any other guesses? 30? Thank you. The highest guess was 30. I hear a 20. What do you think? Compared to the world average, do more Hungarians consider themselves happy or fewer? Who thinks it's more? I don't see a single hand. Who thinks it's fewer? Now I should see all the hands, just saying. Okay, let's take a look. Here's a statistic that shows exactly where we stand. We've heard a few guesses. Let's see what the situation is. The average is 22%, so practically this means that every fifth person worldwide says about themselves, I am very happy, I am very happy. Now, if we look at our own statistics, with sharp logic, I can say that every 16th or 17th person says, I am happy. So if I go along now, of course, as I said, those present are always exceptions. But if we just play with this idea a little, then in this row, there isn't one. But in that row, there will be one. And you know, it's interesting because the answer isn't important when I ask here during a lecture, who feels happy, and then, hooray, optimism, my hand shoots up. But when you wake up in the morning and your eyes open, What do you feel then? Is it, my God, how wonderful that I woke up? How great that my eyes opened? How great that I'm alive? How great that this is my life? How great that this is me? Because it starts from here, in my opinion. And it's very important to remember that study, each of us has the opportunity for this, regardless of what's happening around us. And that's exactly why I want to thank you for honoring me with your trust by coming here today. Because this is what we're going to talk about, how we have the opportunity, even in this kind of economic environment, under these circumstances. Now, I won't list all the factors I hear from people when they say, but how can I be happy when this and that is happening in my life? It is indeed possible. Since quite a few of you indicated that this is your first time meeting me, let me talk a little about how far I used to be from happiness. When someone sees me these days, all they see is that I'm beaming like a split sausage. And then they think that this is just my default setting, that I was born this way, came out of the birth canal, and started smiling. But the reality is different. Because in my childhood, I didn't smile much. God rest my father's soul. He was an alcoholic, and many evenings went by with my mother, my younger brother, and I standing at the window, late at night, waiting to see who would bring him home and in what condition. And in these moments, there were times when my mother, whom I love very much, would sit down on a chair. So these are important facts that I'm talking about now. She sat down on a chair, put my little brother on one knee, me on the other, and the three of us sobbed about how unfortunate we were. I don't necessarily want to draw a parallel between the two, but let me just say that 10 to 15 years later, I found myself on the roof of a tall building with the intention, standing at the edge, of jumping off. For those who haven't read my book or seen my presentations, this might come as a surprise. In my early 20s, I lived on the street. I brushed my teeth and shaved in pubs, and every 2 days I would turn my only pair of underwear inside out. My apologies to those of you whom I see have honored me with your presence many times before, and for whom this is already familiar. All right, let's get to the point. It's important for you to understand that it's not like I was born into a golden cage and everything around me was so happy, and now here I am coming to lecture you all. What I want you to know is that I used to suffer from self-hatred. I hated my life, I hated myself, and now, thank you very much, I love my life. I really love the person I am. This is another point where I watch people's eyes and I see many eyebrows shoot up like, wow, this guy is so arrogant he wouldn't even say hello to himself. At this point, I have to say that I think there's a huge difference between two things: arrogance and confidence. I consider arrogance to be all talk with no substance behind it, while confidence is something that can be a goal for any of us, to be able to say, yes, I love myself, and to be willing to admit that, even in front of strangers. Today in Hungary, this is a very difficult topic to accept because there is too much self-praise. We don't need so much of it anymore. Why should we brag about ourselves? I think you can never overdo this. Basically, if we look at this picture, you can see the proportion. I mentioned earlier that in Hungary, about 1 in 16 people say about themselves that, yes, I am happy. And the question remains, what exactly is happiness? Countless philosophers have dealt with this question for thousands of years. I shortened this process by typing it into Google, and I brought you this definition from Wikipedia. Happiness is a mental state characterized by positive emotions, which can range from contentment to intense feelings of joy. In other words, it doesn't really say much, right? One of my favorite authors, Kurt Tepperwein, said that we spend our whole lives chasing happiness, even though we don't even know what it is. So if we look at why we want to achieve something that we call happiness, well, there's really only one thing that drives us in every case, whether we do something or don't do something. It's because we want to feel good in our own skin. And if you look, there is only one word in this sentence that is highlighted in a different color. So this will be the key today to talk about emotions, because it is emotion that will create your life. It's how you feel in your own skin. And if you notice from the morning that you're not feeling 100%, that you don't feel good in your own skin, then there is something you need to do. And there is only one way to create your happiness, not by trying to influence the outside world, but by focusing on what depends on you. Who here has heard of the concept of stress? I don't know if in this place you've already heard about it. We could also look up a dictionary definition for this. By the way, one relevant definition is a state of prolonged nervousness. But the real question is, what is the source? What is the trigger in relation to stress? If we feel that we are not in control of our lives, if we feel like victims and that everything around us just happens to us, the reason for this could be that we are trying to influence things that do not depend on us. I'll explain this in more detail in a moment, but for now, this is just an introduction. The good news is that the choice is always ours. We can always decide whether we want to be happy or unhappy. Believe me, it really is a decision. Most people I talk to one-on-one it turns out, actually love their own suffering. This is their story, their personal drama. They use it to lick their wounds. They live with it day to day, and it becomes their explanation for why they don't do certain things for themselves in their own lives. This morning I wrote a post on Facebook. Who here knows what Facebook is? Well, thank you. And I wrote that, in my opinion, excuses, so when we look for excuses, are nothing more than painkillers that we take in order to better endure the feeling, the pain of not doing anything for our lives, of not making use of the power of choice. If someone is in a terrible relationship, they could choose to leave it. Would it be painful? Yes. If someone hates their job, they can choose to quit, can't they? Yes, they could. Of course, maybe they'd lose their house, maybe they'd end up on the street. Back in 2009, my colleague is here as a witness. I walked away from a position where, thank you very much, from an outside perspective, everything seemed fine, at least financially, for sure. I remember a year and a half later, my wife and I were heading home. With 2 kids in our arms, we went into the house in winter, and the heating was turned off. As a father, that was tough to experience. And then my wife looked at me and asked, honey, how much longer should I wait? She supports me in everything. I really hit the jackpot with her. I have a wonderful wife. But of course, as a mother, she asks, so what now with the 2 kids? And I said that even then, I wouldn't give up on my dreams. I would still live a life without compromises. And of course, now people can say how good things are. Yes, life always demands its price. And with this whole monologue I've just shared with you, I had only one goal, to pull the sting from the idea that we have no choice. Who here has seen the movie The Secret? Who hasn't? Because that's how many hands were raised. There are a few of you. I suggest you watch it. It's very instructive and very good. Those of you who have seen it may remember that at the end, all the speakers talk about how difficult their childhoods were. They were dyslexic, beaten in alcoholic families, and so on and so forth. And then Jack Canfield comes on and says, and this really stuck with me, that everyone has a story. The title is basically, So What Then? The point isn't what has happened so far. Well, who cares now? I mean, if I was standing on the street corner begging, I could say, but I had a terrible life. And, who cares? What matters isn't what has happened so far. And a lot of people cling to this old story and carry it in front of them as an excuse for why they're not living the life they could be living. Well, getting back on track, but my good news for you is that everything in the world, though, can be learned. Everything, even happiness can be learned. Happiness is a kind of mindset. Happiness is a way of looking at the things that happen in life. Just imagine this miracle we've been given as a gift. What we call our brain receives 4 million bits of information per second. So 4 million bits. And do you know how much of that we actually identify in our lives? 2,000. 2,000. I don't want to dwell on the statistics for too long. It's only important for one reason, and that's why it struck me, because in total that's 0.5%. This means that out of everything happening around you right now, you are the one who decides which 0.5% you pay attention to. Are you focusing now on the fact that I'm wearing pink? Or on why I'm being so provocative? No? Or maybe on whether there's something to what I'm saying? That's something only you can decide. And when I first started giving lectures, I always cared about whether people liked what I was talking about. Now, I don't care anymore. Let me tell you why. Because what you think of me is none of my business. What does concern me and what I focus on, and that's my 100% responsibility, is why I came here today. And I came here today because I read a short story. It's The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Tolstoy. Has anyone here read it by any chance? Wow, quite a few of you. Great. Let me explain for the sake of the others. From the title, it's clear that this isn't going to be a comedy. At least not from the protagonist's perspective. As the story nears its end, Ivan Ilyich is lying on his deathbed. His wife, whom he deeply hates, is holding his hand and he asks himself a question. Could it be that I haven't lived my life the right way at all? Could it be that I've lived my whole life the wrong way? Something like that. Sorry if I didn't quote it word for word. And that's when I realized why I'm doing all of this. So that none of us will have to ask ourselves that question at the end of our lives, but instead be able to say right now that we lived life full throttle. Not long ago, I was in in PEX, giving a lecture, and the organizer called me the next morning to say, hey, listen, some pretty intense things have been happening here since then, because one of the women who went home told her husband, you're packing now. And the two of them went in together in the morning and said, I quit, so I'm done. So fully aware of my responsibility, I'm going to dial back the momentum a bit, because if I really get going, this can really sweep me away here. Because I really feel that if I ask someone how much they're living on a scale from 1 to 10, they just look at me like a deer caught in headlights at night. And then they're just left there, not knowing what to do with this question. How much am I really living? Well, starting with well is already unacceptable, especially when it comes to the question of how much I'm really living, how much I'm alive. And to sum it up, where is the solution? What is the root of unhappiness or happiness? There is only one cause of unhappiness. Just imagine, at least according to my belief. It's what works for me. What do you think it is? What could be the root of unhappiness? Good, I think what I'm hearing is good, or at least that's what I think too. Yes, but it's also true that if you're not at peace with yourself, that's a problem as well. But behind that, there is something bigger. Thank you. It's always that. You're saying really good things. If we want to tie all this together in one big bouquet, this is how I see it. The main causes of unhappiness are our own thoughts. Our own thoughts. Because the fact that we lie to ourselves, that we are not at peace with ourselves, and I could go on listing what you mentioned here, okay, all of it comes down to how we think about ourselves, our lives, other people, the economy, our parents, and the opportunities in this country. It's very interesting. But now we're talking about opportunities, about ways of thinking, and about programming, and about what seeps into our minds or among our thoughts. A question. Who here thinks that it's possible in 2014 in Hungary to honestly and honorably earn 10 million forints a month? Okay? Then, thanks. The question is, if the majority thinks that it is possible to make money, then the real question is no longer whether it is possible, but whether I am able to make money. That's already a different approach, right? So what I need to look at is how I can make 10 million pounds a month. Of course, at this point, most people come and say, well, I don't even need that much money. What would I even do with 10 million forints? And a lot of people throw around things like, oh, just give me the lottery jackpot. I would, wow, change the world with that. I have to admit, when I first had a larger sum in my account, I couldn't find any connection between the two of us. I mean, me, who didn't even have money for food. This can't be mine. So this must be some kind of mistake. You have to grow into this, and you have to change your mindset about money, about my relationship with money, about myself. You have to rewire the whole thing. And what I'm planning to do with you today is to do a bit of redesigning like a good GPS would. We'll rewire our brains a little, start thinking again about what it is that can make us happy. And you know, this is necessary because the mind, because it's constantly buzzing with thoughts. So ever since you've been sitting here, listening to me, countless thoughts have run through your minds. Maybe about whether you really parked in the right place. Maybe it's because I don't agree with this. Maybe about whether there's going to be a break soon or not, because you could have run to the restroom since you arrived late. So anything at all. So your mind keeps running and running with thoughts. And imagine that, well, the reason for this is that the mind needs it. The mind always needs something to occupy itself with. The mind goes crazy if it has to idle. It simply can't accept it. So when we talk about someone becoming enlightened or entering a meditative state, I always imagined it as someone sitting in the lotus position, humming somewhere up in Tibet. That's basically about being able to switch off this function and truly be in an idle state. In everyday life, you might just notice that, wow, something feels strange. Oh, right, I haven't worried for I don't know how long about whether I'll get fired or whether that other car will cut me off. So something like that. The mind's job is to solve problems, to fix things. And that's why it's constantly stirring up things around us. Here's a connection that helps all of us understand just how important it is to start dealing with this at the level of our thoughts. Here you see a four-letter word. My question is, do you think this is supposed to be Goethe? And I just made a typo? Or is it some kind of abbreviation? I appreciate your trust. Thank you very much. In fact, it's the latter. So let's look at what the letter G could stand for, the first of the four. Thoughts. Thoughts. So this is where everything starts. What do thoughts trigger in us? Emotions. Emotions, feelings, yes. As a result of which we will act. Act or not act. To be or not to be, right? To act or not to act. Which will have a result. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in a consumer society, when it's all about fast cars, fast houses, quick loans, quick sex, everything is fast, which one of these four do we want to focus on? What do we want immediately? The result. The result, my friend. Give me the result. I don't need anything else. I'm not going to wait 20 years. I want it now. We think in terms of instant solutions. The world deceives us when they tell you that you don't have to wait for anything. A turnkey house in 30 days, here are your dreams. Yeah, well, after that, you'll be paying for a few decades and it never runs out, but that's not important. You can have it now. In contrast, the key to my happiness might be if we start approaching it from the other end. Yes, but if you've seen the movie The Secret, then how many thoughts do we have on a daily basis? Has anyone ever counted them? So starting from when you wake up, you open your eyes and say, now there was 1, 2. Excuse me? Even that counts. Even that is a thought, yes. Imagine, researchers say that we have roughly not 50,000 thoughts. 50,000 thoughts. And do you know why most people's lives don't really change? Well, for example, let's say it's obvious that I'm the oldest in the room. Maybe I've already been to a class reunion where I noticed that people were talking about the exact same things 5 years later as they did 5 years before about what's new. Well, I got divorced again. This one beat me too. Or, well, I got fired again. Yeah, well, in this country you just can't. And do you know what the reason for this is? Out of these 50,000 thoughts, what do you think? What percentage of them repeat on a daily basis. 90, that is 90 in total. 90 to 95% of them repeat. So you could say we're basically on autopilot, all right? And what we constantly perceive from the world, day after day, is that we live out our own little drama. And if someone says that in this country you can't find a decent job or a decent partner for yourself, then that 0.5% will reflect exactly that. Now, I said that the key starts with thoughts, but what did I say will actually bring about real change for us? Emotions. Emotions. Basically, if you always pay attention to how you feel in your own skin, that will be an indicator for you, based on which you'll know what you need to do. Emotions reveal everything. The world is incredibly simple. Here it is summarized in one sentence. Sorry, life. Life is very simple. What you feel is what you create. If you feel good, you create good things in your life. If you tune in to the other side of this and feel that constantly, then you need to know that this is what you're putting out ahead of you. And this is what will keep happening to you. Therefore, in order to change our emotions, we have to start with our thoughts. And you see, this is how it works. It's a process. So it's a logically structured process. It has 4 stages. The first stage includes all those people who are now outside the room. They have no idea that anything could be done about this. They have no clue, and they have no desire for it either. They say, why are you going to that stupid brainwashing thing? Can't you see that life sucks? Why do you go to places like that? Do you really think they're going to tell you the ultimate truth there? And you even pay for it? Oh my God. Oh my God. Don't you have enough problems already? Right? So, the some cases where we don't know that, we don't know, belong in the bottom left corner. Complete ignorance. In my opinion, this includes the majority of the adult population. They have no idea why things happen. They have no idea that something could be done, and therefore they have no desire for it. However, they do everything they can to hold others back. If someone realizes, well, wow, I constantly feel uncomfortable in my own skin, and maybe I should do something about it. Maybe there is a solution for this. Let's find out. They start reading, start attending trainings and lectures. They start spending time with people who are happy in the same environment, who make a lot of money, and everything seems to be going well for them. They begin to observe these people's lives and ways of thinking, and then realize, wait a minute, they're doing something differently than I am. In other words, from that point on, they know that they don't know. Is that understandable? And when someone comes to this realization, when they have this insight, like, wait a minute. So it's not that the world is evil. It's not the world that needs to change or that something needs to be done about it. It's not the economy or the government that needs to change, but rather my own way of thinking, my own approach. I create my own world. And they start to consciously take action for this. What is needed for that is what we'll be going through today. They reach the stage, this is a very long process, of jumping from the left side to the other, where they will consciously know what they are doing. And if you do this long enough, you'll reach the point where your autopilot mode will be about seeing the good in everything. This is the state when you no longer know it consciously. All right? Let me give you a very practical example of this because I often see a lack of understanding here. Who here has ever actually been a child? This many? Or maybe not. Come on. Do we really have to raise our hands for everything now? Seriously. Okay, fine. I'll just assume it. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I think everyone here has been a child, even those who didn't raise their hands. In fact, I was a child too. It might be hard to believe just by looking at me. But when we were born, we had no idea how to drive a car. Right? We didn't even have the desire to. We didn't even know what a car was. And as for the fact that you could drive one, we definitely didn't know that. So we didn't know that we didn't know. We didn't feel like we were missing anything, nothing at all. Then we saw our dad, or any parent, driving a car. And that's when the desire was born in us. We realized that, well, I can't drive a car, right? There you go. But I'd like to. And then I'm going to learn. Oh, I'm going to learn. Oh, I will learn. And it's a long process until I learn. And after that, who came here by car today? And if it wasn't an automatic car, who can tell me how many times they changed gears? It's very interesting because if you're in the learner-driver stage and someone says, all right, dear student, please make a Y turn, you immediately start sweating, wondering how exactly you're supposed to do it. Now it's a clutch. And since this process is still a bit difficult, you'll feel a bit numb by pressing the index lever, trying, and then of course you can engage it. But now if there's a spot, you just smoothly pull in and park. This is the process, and it works the same way with thinking. People in the lower left quadrant have no idea about the true creative power of thoughts. They don't even have a desire for it. They don't know. They say, their life is terrible. But if we look at which came first, the chicken or the egg, we can realize that things start from here. And of course, the environment will reflect this. Later, if someone wants to change this, they realize when they start learning about it that, wow, I'm still far from the solution. If they stick with it long enough, they go through this whole process. So we move from the bottom left corner all the way to the bottom right. This process is good. And then come the tips that help us rewire ourselves. These are incredibly simple things. And the good news is that you can start incorporating them into your life as soon as tomorrow. And I ask you to be a little patient. Earlier I talked about how the world misleads us, in the sense that it seems like you can do anything, you can get anything instantly. I believe that transforming our way of thinking truly takes time. It really requires that a person does these things day after day. For about 5 years, I did things, Aniasti, on a daily basis, just to shift my mindset in a positive direction. And until then, I basically saw no change at all. Thanks to perseverance, it eventually happened and became a reality. So let's look at the first piece of advice. It goes like this. Always, every morning, tune into the day ahead. This is important because when you open your eyes in the morning, that's the state where you have the greatest chance to set yourself on a happiness program. Program yourself for happiness. I've brought you a picture of a typical moment right after waking up. Doesn't everyone look like this when they wake up? With perfect makeup and a fresh hairstyle. So this is totally normal. And it's really important to become aware at that moment to realize, oh wow. The awareness I just talked about is one of the main keys. When you can recognize which direction your thoughts are going in, and you can tell by how you feel. So if you feel bad, you need to go back to the level of your thoughts. If your feelings are bad, then you need to realize, oops, there was a thought there that I need to replace immediately. So our emotions, our feelings, the way you feel in your own skin, all have their roots at the level of thought. Then you need to immediately check, oops, I feel bad right now. What was I thinking about? What was I just thinking about? You need to replace that thought immediately, consciously. You have to consciously replace it. And tomorrow morning, please pay attention. When you open your eyes, notice what is the first thought that comes to your mind. What is it that comes to your mind? I'm going to say, wow, how great it is that my eyes have opened. Another beautiful day. I am a blessing to the world. Everything around me is wonderful. The best thing that could have happened is that I woke up. This is an ideal state. In contrast, during one-on-one conversations, people usually share something a bit different with me. I actually think that it's not worth focusing on the circumstances because those can be managed. You can always find a solution for them. In my opinion, there are two terrible things that can happen in a person's life, things that absolutely must be dealt with. One of them is if in the morning when you open your eyes, you don't love the person you are. That you open your eyes and say, oh my God, especially if you look in the mirror, well then the situation is that you see yourself and say, wow, I look great. It's almost true to that extent. That's one thing. The other is when you open your eyes and can't give yourself a reasonable, sensible answer to the question of why you woke up. Why did it open, right? And the fact is, most people start their mornings like this. I expected a bit more smiling from the audience at this point. But maybe you're not laughing because it's actually pretty miserable. So if you look at it, you know how many % of people check their emails within the first 10 minutes after waking up. I'm asking for guesses. Yes. Any other guesses? So far I've heard between 80 and 20. Other? 60, 70. Thank you. 50. After you've all shared your guesses, and before I tell you the actual data, let me just say that I've asked this question many times, and I can clearly see that those who guess more than 50 are the ones who say, well, I check mine, that's for sure. And probably others do as well, in most cases, with all due respect to the exceptions, okay? So before anyone say, nay, I said 80, but I don't check mine, I believe you, all right? So I'm just saying that people always start from their own perspective, like, well, look, I personally check it, and maybe others don't as much, but let's say 80, for example, because that's their starting point. If someone says 20 or 10 or whatever, then obviously they probably don't, but everyone takes it as a personal insult. I'll move on from this quickly. And just imagine that more than half of people start their day in that truly blessed state when they actually have the choice of how to begin shaping the events in their lives. They turn on their computer, and as I mentioned before, they check their email or look at their Facebook to see if maybe Obama has added them or something like that. Some important thing has happened. And that's how they get started. So what happens on Facebook and in the news feed? Now, more and more often you see things like mutilated children or abused dogs, beaten to death, so just horrors. And now, just think, if your morning starts out like this, what are you going to see for the rest of the day? Horrors. Because the mind looks for self-justification. It says, that's just how life is. Don't you get it? What happiness? What are you even talking about here? The facts are right here. And the good news is, there's another side as well. There are facts that are good too. We just see them less often, since we're on the topic. By the way, do you know why Facebook works so well? Because this is something I think about a lot. Social media, to use a nice Hungarian expression. Among others, Facebook is one of the most well-known. Why is it that so many people spend 5, 6, even 8 hours a day logging in 20 or 30 times a day to check their news feed? Or to see if someone actually liked their photos? What happened? Why is that? And as many of you know, my favorite topic is self-esteem, self-love, how much you love the person you are. And what is it about when someone cooks their very first bean stew, takes a picture of it, and immediately posts it on Facebook? Then keeps checking to see how many people like it. Already four people have liked my bean stew, right? What is this all about? They're searching for a feeling they don't have toward themselves. Well, I'm a good person. I'm important, right? I'm good. I'm lovable. That's good. When someone goes on vacation and takes a photo of themselves every 5 minutes to show where they are, Well, that's not why I go on vacation, honestly. And when someone is always posting pictures with their little kids, just live in the moment. I really do want to share my happiness. Of course, I get it. Just think about it for a moment. And the other person already has 28 likes while I only have 4, so maybe I'm not a good person. I don't know. Just think about how disappointed someone can be. If they post their stewed beans and nobody likes it, right? Well, that was just a little detour. Getting back to how to tune into your day. I have a tried and true method that I'm happy to share with you all. I learned this from my #1 master, my role model, and I've incorporated it into my life, and it's worked wonders for me. It consists of 3 steps. The first hour after waking up is also called the hour of power. The hour of power is a kind of energy that, according to most leading researchers, the first hour after waking up will determine how happy you will be in your life, how successful you will be in your life. The first step of this is to relax for 20 minutes. So when you open your eyes, if it's important, go to the bathroom and then lie back down. Lie back down, close your eyes, and if you want, listen to some music. Listen to guided relaxation materials like these, or just be quiet and imagine your day, picturing all the good things that are going to happen. Think about the good things that will happen and tune yourself into that mindset. For example, this morning, just so it wouldn't seem like I'm all talk and giving advice here, but then skip it myself. But those who know me are aware that I usually wake up early. This means that today, for instance, I got up at 4. Because around 5:30, my sons are already up. After they wake up, they sit on my lap, and then I can't focus on this anymore, so it's hard to relax. There are 2 kids, a 5 and a 6-year-old, sitting there. So I get up early because I tell myself that I want to make time for this in my life, to relax and imagine that you'll be here and how great it will be. First, I will see the astonishment. For a while, things happen without any smiles. And then, of course, that pleasant feeling is born, the one we all long for. So that's how I imagine it. I imagine how nice it will be when my wife comes out of the room and we hug each other. I imagine how wonderful it will be to take my children to kindergarten. And from these feelings, I know that I am heading in the right direction because I feel fantastic in these moments. If I have these 20 minutes, and of course the question is, what happens if I fall back asleep? It's worth setting your phone, an alarm clock, anything, so that it should be 20 minutes. After that, read for 20 minutes. I talk about this topic even though I hadn't read a single book until I was 28 years old. However, since then, I haven't exactly fallen in love with reading either. Since then, I haven't missed a single day. And on the one hand, I couldn't even if I wanted to because I love it so much. I need it so much. I really require it. When negative thoughts start to come, less and less often now, but they still do sometimes, they just come like that. And then I start reading something like that. This is it. So good, I'm going to do it, I'm moving forward. My friend Adam is here. He's a professional athlete, and he always shares thoughts like that too. Not just sugar-coated stuff, but about perseverance and how to keep going. And even when he writes on the YouTube video, I listened to it 10 times this morning. I saw that it was 6.5 minutes long. I said, okay, you worked out for an hour. I did the math, right? So going back to reading, here's another connection between successful and happy people and everyone else. I love the thoughts of Jim Rohn, who said, poor people have big TVs, while rich people have big libraries. Here's the connection. Here's the connection. And then the third thing is exercise. Well, this was the area in my life that I struggled with the most because up until I was 35, I couldn't really even do a push-up. And I was always the chubby kid. At school, the one who didn't go to gym class until somehow they managed to get me exempted. And it was very difficult to get myself used to making sports a regular part of my life. from that starting point. It's very hard, but it is possible. If you also haven't seen a pair of sneakers in 20 years, then, in my opinion, don't start by saying you'll run a marathon in August. And don't think that it will only work if you buy workout clothes and go to the gym. Instead, you can simply, besides that one sit-up, you do when you get out of bed, lie back down, and do one or two more. So this is where it all starts. And in my case, for example, that 20 minutes was just one at the beginning. And when it comes to promises, it's very important to first promise yourself something small. And give yourself a sense of achievement, because that's what will give you the strength to make new promises and actually keep them. One of the most defining thoughts that influenced my life for years comes from Zig Ziglar. The greatest mistake you can make is to do nothing because you think you can only do a little. This is an incredibly profound thought for me. If we relate this to habits, if we examine it in connection with habits, then consider that, yes, there are people who say, oh, should I really do just one push-up? I'm not going to get down on the floor just for that. That's just pointless. But do one, if you can do one, or do one sit-up. Don't promise yourself that you'll run 10 kilometers tomorrow because you won't even put on your sneakers. Instead, tell yourself that you'll walk up to the first floor instead of taking the elevator. This is where it starts. Or similarly, if you say, and this is no longer related to the morning ritual, I just want to analyze this thought, why it helped me so much. If you can make even one person's mood better in a day, then it was already worth it. Once I read a book by Wayne Dyer called The Power of Intention, and in it he writes about how many people's lives a positively thinking person can influence in a positive way over the course of their life. And do you know what the author wrote? 90,000. 90,000. It works like a stone you throw into a lake. It starts to ripple. So if you say a kind word to someone, they will pass it on because their mood changes. I use this every time, for example, with cashiers at the store. If someone is sitting there, I tell them, you're such a jackpot for this store. You do your job so well. At first, there's usually a blank stare. Then they collect themselves and look at me. Me? And I watch. I pay very close attention as I've already packed up my things. The next customer comes and the cashier says to them, have a nice day. And then we move on. And later, the customer will go home and say, hey, you know that grumpy cashier, the one who always sits there with a gloomy face? She smiled at me and was kind. And she'll be kind to her child. And it just keeps going like this. The reason I put the morning ritual in first place is so you can tune into the day, because if you do just this one thing, a miracle will happen in your life. Let me repeat. In the morning, when you open your eyes, if you have to, go to the bathroom. If you can handle it, daydream a little without it, tune into the sun. Imagine how many good things are going to happen to you. Then after that, read. Read things that you like. It doesn't have to be highbrow literature. It can be on any topic, anything at all. It's very interesting that I, who never used to read, listened many times to Brian Tracy's audio recordings telling me to start reading, that because of the impact it would have on my life. And he said that if you read for 30 minutes a day, you'll eventually get into it and end up reading one book a week. Do you know how many books adults read on average in Hungary today? Adult people, or per year? Just one per year? Roughly above the truth. And this includes a lot of uplifting writings, like Tiffany and Romana. So these are the truly substantial and life-changing stories as well. Now just imagine that if you really start reading and you say, wow, well, if Brian says it, then I have to try this. And he says that if you read for 1 to 3 years, you'll start to become knowledgeable. From time to time, during a conversation, people will start asking for your opinion, like, hey, you're good at this. How do you do these things? In 3 to 5 years, you'll start to really understand the subject. So you could say, I know what this is about. You start to form a definite standpoint, and you have a positive reputation in your environment regarding the fact that, yes, this is how it works. In 5 to 7 years, you'll be counted among the experts in the field at an international level. For 8 years, I read every single morning, and when TV2 first called me to come in for a morning talk about the connection between positive thinking and life. And then I hung up the phone and said, thank you, Brian. It works. And of course, you could say 8 years. Well, 8 years. Now, if I start now 8 years, that still seems so far away. And Brian gave me the answer to this too, because I also had such fleeting thoughts. Like, well, reading for years, by then, well, I need something now. Let TV2 call me, or RTL would be fine too. Just someone call me already to ask for my opinion, right? And Brian said, and it was really great that he always teaches with examples. Anyone who has been to my lectures more than once has noticed that not a single one went by without mentioning Brian Tracy. So I owe them the most for the fact that I am standing here in front of you now. And he said that 2 moderately young ladies, around 50, are talking. And one of them says, well, it's interesting what I'm about to say, but imagine, she tells her friend, that I've been attracted to law my whole life. I don't know why, but it's an interesting feeling. I was simply drawn to law like that. But then the kids came along too. Well, I raised the first, the second, the third. I didn't have time to go to school anymore, and then they flew the nest. Now here I am. Now I'm already 50 years old. Now I would finally have the time. But should I just forget about the whole thing? Or what if I actually did it, if I started after all? You know, I'm 50 years old by the time I finish with specialization and everything. 5 or 6 years? It's just not worth it. Shall? And very wisely her friend asked her, listen, if you don't study law, how old will you be in 5 years? To translate this to our previous example, if you don't start reading now because you say, well, if they had told me this in school when I was 14, then by now I would have been the announcer somewhere. I don't know where. You can start at any time, and that's the good news about all of this. So that's all about the first ritual. The third part is movement. So relaxation, reading, movement, 3 times 20 minutes. If you did just this one thing, believe me, your life would move in the direction of happiness. You will see the positives because that's what you tune into, because that's what will happen in your life, because that morning moment will determine what you notice throughout the day. If you have doubts about this, should I show you something now? Put everything down from your hands. Do you see how powerful it is, what you focus your attention on? All right? Relax your hands, please, everyone. I can see all of you. We won't move on until this happens. Now everyone is starting to move. I'm very glad about that. Great. Now please put your 2 palms together. Right at this line, please, okay? You're doing it very precisely. That's the point. All right? Got it? Okay, if you have it, then close your hands together, and now we are going to pray. Almost. My request is that you look at your 2 middle fingers and see which one is a little bit longer than the other. All right? If someone, I'm sure there are some perfect ones among us. I ask those people if theirs are the same length, obviously, then they should place their left hand on their left knee and just rest their right hand comfortably. If the others see that the left is shorter, then do the same. All right? So place the hand that appears shorter on the corresponding knee. And with the other hand, you don't have to sit like a samurai, so just rest it anywhere comfortably. All right? So check, are they the same length? Left. Okay? So, does everyone know which one is shorter or which one is the left? So, should I start over? So you put them together. You see your 2 fingers and you notice which one looks shorter. If you see one as shorter, then place that hand on your knee and let the other one rest loosely. If they look the same length, then put your left hand on your left knee and let the other one rest loosely. Does everyone have one of their hands on their knee? Great. Now start looking at the middle finger of the hand that's on your knee with intense focus. Not at me, at your finger. And now let's count out loud to it 8 times, telling it to grow longer. All right? I'll say it out loud too. Please repeat after me, okay? Let's count. Grow longer, grow longer, grow longer. Grow longer, grow longer, grow longer, grow longer, grow longer. Thank you very much. Now, put your hands together again and see what happened. I always pay attention at this point. Typically, it's the ladies who start giggling first. When I get home, I'm going to try this myself. If this works, well, that's a miracle. I've only tried it with my finger so far. But the possibilities are there for everyone, right? I see the gentlemen are rubbing their hands too. Well, let's give this a chance. You never know. All right, so that's about what you pay attention to. If anyone is bothered by what happened, there will be a break soon, and then you can tell them to go back to their seat, and that's enough, even if it happens 8 times. It only needs to happen once. Okay? But before you start saying that I messed up your proportions here or whatever else. So the point is, there is incredible power in what you focus on. It has unbelievable power. Let's move on to the second point. Keep your thoughts clean throughout the day. Here's a picture that many people know. You know, from the little monkeys. And why did I bring this up for you now? But I see that most of the audience is female, so I brought another version of this, which you might like even more. You're very welcome. And why are we talking about this? Because a lot of people complain. A lot of people complain, and maybe you're the type who complains too. Look, maybe you're not the complaining type, but you listen to it. And the thing is, if you're not the complaining type, but you listen to it, then 2 things will happen. One is that it will take your life in a terrible direction. Just by listening, it's just as harmful if you only hear people around you grumbling, spewing negativity. It drags you down just the same. And as a result, after a while, you'll notice, oops, now I'm complaining too. Because we are chameleons. So if you live your life among negative people, you will inevitably become negative too. You will inevitably become negative. I'm almost spot on about this when it comes to negative people, where if I meet someone and they're negative, that's where our acquaintance ends. I don't allow anyone to mess up my mind. I simply don't allow it. I approach this the same way as that old cowboy who, when he gets married out in the desert, puts his new wife on his horse. He gets on as well. They start riding into the desert, and then the horse suddenly stumbles, and the cowboy says, 1. They keep riding. The horse stumbles again. The cowboy says, 2. They go further. The horse stumbles for the 3rd time. The cowboy says, 3. He gets off the saddle and helps his newlywed wife down from the horse. He walks up to his horse in the middle of the desert, and bam, he shoots it in the head. His wife looks at him and says, but why did you have to do that? Why would you shoot the poor horse in the head here in the middle of the desert just for that? And the cowboy says, 1. There are no exceptions with me. So no matter who it is, if it's negative, I don't allow it. It's not by accident that I tune into the day every morning, only for someone to come along and just mess it up like that. Gandhi once said that he would not allow anyone to walk through his mind with dirty feet. I do not allow it. I don't keep it clean just for someone to step in. And boom, mess it up. This is always a hornet's nest. I'll tell you in a moment what one can do. One thing is to do what I mentioned first. So start from a positive place. In the morning, because usually that's when it happens, either someone themselves or their partner, whom they've lived with for 20 years, is negative. Well, okay, 30 years. By then, you really shouldn't give up. But sorry, I don't want to be sarcastic. It's just that so often we cling to the idea that this is already too much. By the way, this is also a matter of self-esteem. Because if someone values themselves, they are not willing to endure having to spend their life with someone through constant compromises. Continuing on. What else can someone do? There was a period in my life when I didn't speak to my immediate family members, precisely because of this. Thank God things are different now. But there was a time when I completely withdrew from communication. Do you think it hurt? I thought I was going to die from it. But I know how much strength there is in this, both in a positive and a negative way. Related to this, just imagine a situation like this. If someone says, I want to lose weight. I've decided that I'm going to lose weight. He meets an old friend, or God forbid his partner, who slept next to him and just shrugs it off when he says, I've decided to lose weight. To which his partner replies, oh, don't be ridiculous. You've already said this 8 times. You're just fooling yourself, don't you see? And right there, inside you, is that certain thing that will keep you from taking the necessary steps. Related to this, I have a really good story about a man who goes down to hell because he wants to find out how Lucifer manages to make so many people's lives run aground. How does he manage to get so many people to end up in hell? And he goes up to him and says, listen, Lucifer, show me what you do to people. I want to know. And he says, okay, I'll show you. Come with me. He starts taking him around hell. He shows him infidelity. He shows him drugs, some other crimes, and so on. And Lucifer says, but all of this is nothing. I have something that ruins more people's lives than all the others combined. I'll show you. The man is very curious. Lucifer takes him into a large hall. In the middle of the hall, there is a huge display case, a glass showcase. A single lamp shines down onto its center. And Lucifer says, look, there it is. The man walks over, very curious, looks at it, and says a bit disappointedly, but Lucifer, this is just a simple wedge. To this, Lucifer replies, that is the wedge of doubt. If I can just drive the tip of this into a person's mind, then I can keep driving it deeper and deeper, and they will get further and further away from what they believe they are capable of, and from what they are actually capable of. And as a result, their life will be a complete failure. The fact is, there are no exceptions to this. You might say that you are so strong that no one can drag you down, that no one in your environment can be negative towards you. These are facts. Because we are usually emotionally involved, we don't want to accept these facts. But that doesn't change the reality. They remain facts. And it's very important to understand that it's naive and self-deceptive to believe that if we don't change who we allow to influence our thoughts, we can still achieve happiness in life. If you live among unhappy people, you have no chance of being happy. Maybe this is the bad news of the day, but you have no chance. Because unhappiness is like a virus. Just like envy. Just like any kind of malice. Just notice it yourself. If you meet someone repeatedly, you start to resemble them because we are like chameleons. I've noticed that when I spend a longer period somewhere, for example, when I hold a training in Secoli land in Romania. They speak our language so beautifully there, always using the S sound. And we went out, and it was there. I come home and tell my wife about it. And she's amazed that now I say everything with an S too, right? And in the same way, if I'm in America for a couple of weeks giving a training there, when I come home, I notice that I've adopted the rituals that are natural over there. And it really works like this, that we become like the people we spend most of our time with. I have even better news than this. So my advice is, if you notice about yourself, remember, in the spirit of awareness, do you recall, you don't know that you don't know. Then you realize, oh, something is happening. I know that I'm not doing something right. If you notice that you're complaining, then you say, ah, damn, I'm heading in the wrong direction. And then immediately, stop yourself and replace it with a thought like this. Let me give you an example. What can you do if someone is bad-mouthing another person to you behind their back? In my case, this is no longer typical. People don't bad-mouth others to me anymore. I'll tell you why. If someone starts bad-mouthing another person, I tell them to stop right there. We have two choices. Either we call the person E, and you tell them directly what you're telling me now, or we talk about something else. Which would you prefer? Well, it's not that important. So what should we eat? Yeah, sure. This is also a bit of a confrontation, but it's still better than just sitting there while they start up again, complaining and being negative about everyone and so on, and stop it. And do you know what will happen if you do this 3 times? Find someone you can talk to. The other day, a man came up to me. I'm standing there, he comes up to me, and then he says, life just gives you these stories. I know some people have heard this several times already, but it just happens. He comes up to me, looks at me, and says, life sucks, doesn't it? I turn to him and say, for you, maybe, but not for me. In that instant, he disappeared from my side. And he'll keep going until he finds someone he can complain to. Why should I agree that life sucks when it's never been this good? Seriously. And one more thing. Who here watches TV? Just raise your hand reflexively, not after thinking about it, okay? Like, oh no, what's going to happen now? Why do I have to raise my hand? Of course, I know everyone only watches National Geographic and Spectrum. So no news, none of those soap operas like Baratok Costo, and I don't even know what else is on. I haven't watched TV in 10 years. And I advise you not to do it either. I'll tell you why. Because TV, the media, look, I don't have any conspiracy theories in my head, and I don't have any kind of persecution complex. But TV is the way they can manipulate you. You end up doing what they want you to do. Everything. Well, there are such surveys. I don't know if you've seen that short video where Danny Bluey spins Istvan Vago around. Who has seen it? You know that Istvan Vago is the president of the National Association of Skeptics. So he doesn't believe in anything. And Danny Blue, and Dan, who is a mentalist, invites him over and does with him a mentalist exercise or trick or whatever you want to call it, that even Vago himself says, I don't believe this. I simply don't understand this. So he says, I don't know. I can't tell how you could have done this. And the beautiful part is that afterwards, Danny Blue actually shows him how it's done. And Vago says, you convinced me. It's worth checking out on YouTube. If you type in Danny Blue, Vago Istvan, you can watch this video. From time to time, I wonder how this works, how they are able to influence our minds. There, it's about a specific case. Just imagine what kind of effect it has on you if you watch TV regularly. So, going back to the point, if you look at it, the media is the channel through which you are connected, like an umbilical cord. And if you watch a news broadcast, honestly, I think it shouldn't just have an 18 plus rating, but something more like a no entry sign or something. It's simply like the ill fate in the national anthem. It's terrible. I'm serious. Explosions. People were hanged, locked up. This many people got fired. There's a virus. This many people died. And then after watching it, you just say, oh my God, what has happened to me? You see, I never get involved in politics. I don't even know who's in charge, and I don't care either. A lot of people look at me accusingly, asking, how can you live like this? Well, I say, look, this is just how I am, and I'm fine, completely fine. And you know, what is it really about that a handful of people can control 7 billion? What they need to achieve is to make people afraid, to make them live in uncertainty. If all 7 billion people said, you know what, I live my own life and I know I have a choice, and I enjoy my life, then 10, 20, 50 or 100 people could not control a whole world. Just think about it. But through the media, you constantly get this drip feed. And all you feel is, wow, I'm in such a bad mood. Is there anyone here who works in television? Thank you for coming. There are actually some really good shows that are worth watching. Question, or what would you like? Oh, football, of course. You can watch football. Now, I really mean like on recording. No, but seriously, I'm just saying that the things to avoid are the... Now listen, I'll give you an example. Who do you think has seen the movie Titanic? Okay, who hasn't? Almost the whole room has seen it. Almost. Well, if you didn't, but you didn't raise your hand, then how am I supposed to know you haven't seen it? Listen up. Titanic? What is Titanic about? What does Titanic program you for? Wealth? Okay. You might remember what the atmosphere is like in the two or different settings. The rich are upstairs. Opulence, luxury. The whole crowd is filled with gloom. They're sitting there kind of half depressed. Everyone is sad. Then our main character goes down to the damp bottom, where there's no food, no luxury, and not even a window. Just artificial light. And they're celebrating and dancing and living, and they're cheerful. What do you think this is telling you? If you want to be happy, then be... Believe me, this is programming. And after all this, should I say I don't have a compression theory in my head, huh? Just start thinking about it. Start thinking about it. Find your true goals. Now, I'm not talking about things like a Cavalli dress or a Porsche Cabrio, but about something that makes you wake up in the morning and say, God, thank you that my eyes have opened. Wow, now, what a miracle this is. A kind lady, just before I started the presentation, as we were walking toward the restroom together, asked me how it is that such cheerfulness radiates from me before the talk. Aren't you afraid? Aren't you nervous? And I said, look, since 4 in the morning, I've been like this, just waiting for when I can come and talk to you all because I simply love this. I couldn't do anything else. I don't even know what I would do otherwise. I looked around to see what kind of reaction this gets. You know, I often notice that when someone shares what's going on in their life, the other person says, that's nothing. Just imagine what's happening to me. Phew. You're still lucky. Mine is an even bigger mess. This is pretty much the image that comes to my mind. Yeah, the toothbrush says, sometimes I feel like I have the worst job in the world. Great, who's the toilet paper? Should we change it? You know, this is typically one of those situations when you're in the store picking out ingredients for the chickpea stew so you can take a photo for Facebook, and you see, or rather you hear, another customer talking saying, did you hear? As soon as it starts like that, I'm already running away. So at that point, an exchange, a kind of business starts up about who has the worst story. Did you hear that he died too? Wow, well then, soon there's hardly any point in us living either. That's where it all starts. And then someone says, that's nothing. Even his kid died. Wow. And you go home feeling like you're looking for a knife to cut your wrists. That's how it is. And do you know where it all starts? Sorry? The media. For me, ever since I cut out the news and all that negativity from my life, unbelievable positive things have been happening to me. Really? Things you wouldn't believe. If I only told you about this, you'd honestly think I was joking or something because it's unbelievable. But really, I couldn't stage things the way life has played out for me since I rewired myself. And of course, for this, you need to dare to stand out from the crowd. Because, let me give you a concrete example. Sorry for laughing, it's just that 2 or 3 years ago, well, about 2 years ago, I was talking with my mother and she asked, so what's new, my son? Oh, Mom, I said, imagine, my book just came out and it's selling really well. So I really give a lot of lectures. Now I'm going to Australia. I've been to Canada to give lectures, so I really love it. It's really amazing. And then my mom listens and says, and do you have any work? Well, I said, I don't really look for anything anymore. I mean, extra work, because, you know, this is why I still don't quite fit in. And listen, if you start doing what you truly love from your heart and you get paid for it, then you'll feel guilty. Do you know why? because we've been programmed to think that work equals a necessary evil. That's what's been programmed into us. God forbid you actually enjoy your work. I mean, who do you think you are to do that? Sure, you can have a hobby, of course, but why would you get paid for it? I just do that for fun. I enjoy doing it. Think about how often this happens, and when someone finally gets the chance to make a living from their hobby, or could start to, then comes the other great classic from this. You can't make a living from this. A very dear close friend of mine loves gastronomy, and in his case, so when we have garden parties or friendly calm gatherings, he always does the cooking, but in such a way that as soon as he picks up the garlic, his mouth starts watering just from holding the clove. Look at this, how beautiful it is. I said, it's just garlic. I don't know what you're supposed to see in it. Really. Seriously. And I told him, listen, Szabo, you should really do something with gastronomy. You absolutely love it. Oh, come on, don't be ridiculous. He works in a completely different field. And then he tells me, well, yeah, he's thought about it too. But you can't make a living from this. I said, listen, let's ask Jamie Oliver what he thinks about that. So many people now, for example, what I do, I'm a performer, a professional, someone who really, many are closing up shop. I don't want to share too many personal stories, but honestly, most people say that there's no need for this in Hungary today. I think there's never been a greater need for this than now. Never. The other day, I was at Adam's place in Szabadbatyan. The event turned into a completely different kind of performance than what I originally went there for. And I'm really glad I got to go. I hope there are others who felt the same way about it. As the host, Adam just sat there in the front row looking like, wow, this is going to be intense. So don't be afraid to be yourself. The original painting is always worth much more than the copy. It's very interesting how we always try to imitate successful people. But the real strength always lies in daring to be unique. Not long ago, I gave a presentation here for OC, Othon Centrum. And imagine it was strange for me that while I was giving my talk, some people were drawing on the wall. Well, they were graffiti artists. So what do graffiti artists do? They see a blank wall and immediately feel inspired to create something there. And usually the thing is, they would even get punished for it. Now they turned the whole thing around and started approaching big companies, saying that if someone has a presentation and would like it to be captured in pictures, they can draw it live during the event for such and such an amount of money. How great is that? You start thinking about the whole thing a little differently. In fact, let me tell you something else. Of course, you might say that this already requires money, but that's just another kind of excuse. I have to tell you, when I first heard about an adults-only hotel, who here has heard of this before? It's unbelievable. Just think about it. Adults-only hotel. If you don't have kids, and you want to go for a bit of wellness time, knowing that, there won't be a family with 5 children screaming through the 3 days you want to relax. This is an adults-only hotel. Children are not allowed there. And there are so many child-friendly hotels, right? Because they're all child-friendly. Like, okay, are all of them child-friendly? But then there's an adults-only hotel. You start to think about the whole thing a little differently. You look at what people actually need. All right? In life, your task is not to live without problems, but to be passionate about something. And if you can't find what truly excites you, what really fires you up, what makes you feel like you could plow through anything in first gear, when you wake up in the morning and feel, oh my God, how great it is that I get to do this, then I have a brilliant piece of advice for you. Go to a bookstore and spend a day there. Of course, I know you're very busy, at least an hour. All right? Go in and start browsing books on all kinds of topics. We are seeing an advertisement that is not at all subtle. Well, there is something that I often test this during presentations to see what really crosses the line for people. So I look into their eyes and then I say, I could be modest, but I have nothing to be modest about. This is the non plus ultra. This is the one where I can see people thinking, wow, man, now that's really over the top. Although in reality, I only do it to push you a little out of your comfort zone. Because, you know, lukewarm water is never cold enough for someone to want to get out of it. Everyone tries to kiss your ass when you're not here. Everyone tries to flatter you in a way that doesn't lead to a serious argument. Of course, both of you think about it differently. When you leave, you both know by the end of the conversation that, well, once again, they didn't say what they really think because you can feel it. And I decided that I'm going to say what I think. So look, I need you. There will be a break soon. So find it. Find it. For those who can't find what truly excites them, I usually feel that they haven't tried many things and they complain saying, but I can't find it. I don't have anything like that. Nope. And if not, when was the last time you went skydiving? Or how many different instruments do you play? Or have you ever tried certain things? Well, no, that's not for me. We're not that kind of family. For us, my mom couldn't do it either, and I can't either. No one in the family can do it. You see, the difference between a child and an adult is that when two kids are talking and one asks the other, hey, can you play the piano? The other says, I don't know, I've never tried. But if you ask an adult, they'll say, I have no sense of music. I've never had it. I've never had it since I was a child. Well, that's what they made you believe. Your parents made you believe that. Try it. Give it a chance. Maybe that's not the direction for you, but try it out. It would be a long example, so I'll just say it very briefly now. I usually talk about my friend Feris Joni, who started doing triathlons at the age of 43 because of an interesting story, and he became a world champion. At 43, he had never done sports in his life. That's when he started. And he could have said, but at 43, where can you go from here? He became a world champion at 49. 6 years later. Yeah, but he's an ultra triathlon world champion, which meant he wouldn't be able to escape this story. When he started doing triathlons, the thing was he couldn't swim. Anyone who knows what a triathlon is understands that being able to swim is a pretty crucial requirement to know. Because otherwise, well, so he couldn't swim. 6 years later, he became world champion with the following results. He swam 76 kilometers, cycled 3,600 kilometers, and finished off with a casual jog of 844 kilometers. That's how he became world champion. When he finished this race, he had already returned home to Hungary, and there were still people running, by the way. The reason many of you don't know him, which, by the way, is often a source of heartache for him, is because in our fast-paced world, we only have time to watch the 50-meter sprint on TV, and then we have to go. We already have things to do. Now, this race lasted for more than 2 weeks. 482 hours. How much is that? That's 20 days. They ran and competed for 20 days. Who's going to watch all of that? But really, right? So try out new things. I ask you, for example, to write down 10 things before you go to bed tonight that you will try out. Write down 10 things. Write down, for example, that you'll start writing, like you'll try writing a blog. You feel the urge to express yourself. A lot of people tell me during my trainings that they've thought about writing a book. I say, great. How much have you written so far? Well, I've only just been thinking about it. So I say, take out your computer or a notebook or something like that and start writing. And then you'll see if it makes you feel good. Because if it makes you feel good, then write. When we look at J.K. Rowling's life story, you know, the one who wrote Harry Potter, many of us only see the rose, not the thorns, not how things actually unfolded. People think, oh, she just got lucky, Thomas. But when she writes about herself, she says she used to sit in cafes. But they would look at her funny because she couldn't even afford to order anything just so she could write there. She lived in a damp basement with her child, whom she was raising alone as a teacher. And now she has more money than Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of England. So then people say, oh yeah, she just got lucky. Right? So try new things. And there are two kinds of risks in life. One comes from trying something and the other comes from not trying. The choice is yours. And if you do try something and you start heading in a direction that makes your heart pound in your throat because you love it so much, this could be fishing, it could be cycling. You can make a living from any of these. This is yet another faulty way of thinking. That's been programmed into us, that you can't make a living from what you love. But you can make a living from it. You just have to figure out how. Thank God more and more people are daring to follow this path. This is what those talent shows are often about. The other day I saw a 45-year-old prison guard, well, actually a masseuse, on one of those American talent shows. Oh, and she went up to sing. I cried along with the judges. And she just stood there, so sweet, saying, well, I just like to sing. And her voice was like Pavarotti in a woman. It was a miracle. And she said that she hadn't sung for a long time, only recently started performing. And there she was at 45 years old. Well, it was about time, right? So think big. If you start something and you feel that it draws you in, you feel that it's good for you, remember those feelings. So if you feel good doing something, if you love reading, you can make a living from it. You can make a living from it. Believe me, if you're the kind of person who starts reading in the morning and on your day off you realize it's already dark outside, then that's your path. And you can make a living from that in many ways, including by writing out what you've read and absorbed. Because if you read a lot, and you have a knack for it, you'll end up like a glass being filled with water. Eventually it will overflow. That's how the best books are born. Start paying attention to this. People say, well, I just like to read. You can't live off that. But you can. I started working on this. 2010, on December 29th, I held my first training in Miskolc. And then I decided that within 10 years, Brian Tracy would know who Peter Szabo from Hungary is. It's true that I don't speak English, but that's just a circumstance. And the following happened last February. How did this hand end up there? Does this look familiar? Isn't that right? Or not? By the way, who here in the room knows who Brian Tracy is? Oh, good. Then that's fine. I'm relieved since I'm talking about him here. So he's the world's #1 motivational speaker who does what I do just for 30 years. So he has written 55 books, is read in 62 countries and 43 languages. So he has had a positive impact on the lives of millions of people. And he read my book. Can you imagine? He wrote a recommendation for it. And I'm talking about this because even now I can barely catch my breath. This is such an honor for me. A living legend is my role model. And in 2010 and at the beginning of 2013, I met him in the lobby of the Kempinski Hotel. And he came with me. It was arranged. Of course, it wasn't a coincidence that we were both walking there. And he said, hello, Peter. And then I said to myself, man, it works. Because I can feel it. Because my heart beats so fast when I get to do what I'm doing now that I simply can't put it into words. And you also have something that attracts you. You just have to shed that barrier that says you can't make a living from it. And that's your job. You can't enjoy it. And you can't get paid for doing what you enjoy. These beliefs need to be rewritten. Find your true goals. And before the break, let me just say that my collaboration with my master has taken a very positive turn, thanks to which he will be visiting Hungary this November at my invitation. And if you honor us with your presence, then we will be able to greet you together. From the same stage at Brian, because as the organizer, I gave myself the privilege of also giving a presentation. So I look forward to seeing you there with great pleasure. If you're interested in the program or want more details, you can get information about it from my colleague Nori during the break. And what should you do if you can't think big? What should you do if you feel like, but I can't do this? What did I do when I thought, Brian Tracy will know who I am? And I said, exactly about me. What I did was, when I said that, Brian Tracy would know who I am, and my brain just rejected the whole idea like it threw a belt thinking this, unbelievable, that's impossible. So I added a little phrase to the sentence like, what if Brian Tracy knew who I was? And such a wonderful feeling was born in me. Do you remember those thoughts? What came after? Emotions, actions, results. A lot of people say you shouldn't worry about what kind of feeling your goal evokes in you. Just write it down, write it every morning. Maybe I'm a heretic, but I see it differently. If you keep thinking about your goal and it makes you feel bad, then you're moving further away from your goal. Imagine if every morning a single person writes down, I am in a happy relationship. We love each other with the partner of my life. Great. How does that make you feel? Terrible. Well then, don't write it, because this way it won't. Do you know why it makes you feel bad? Because you don't believe it, because you feel like you're lying. You wake up in the morning, stretch, think it's going to be a beautiful day, turn to the side, but there's no one there. So how am I supposed to be living in a happy relationship now? Or I have millions of dollars in savings in my account, and I'm enjoying the benefits of financial independence. Okay? And then you get a text message right at that moment saying, your outgoing calls are restricted due to an unpaid bill. Wait a minute. Where's the financial independence now? Like, oh my God, this just isn't working. And then the next morning it happens again because I'm tough. I write it down. I'm enjoying financial independence. And then you remember the text message and how, and it makes you feel bad. Try saying financial independence, okay? And you say, what if I lived in financial independence? And listen, the feeling said, wow, now that's something. That's something. And it's the emotion that follows the thought that will take you somewhere. Just try saying it without anything else. See what kind of feeling it brings up in you if you really dare to think big, and then observe it afterwards. There's a huge difference between the two. Be the first in your own life as the next point. Who here has ever been called selfish? You're so selfish. Has anyone ever said that to you? Listen, when someone told me I was selfish, I felt so guilty. Maybe they're right. And then I realized something that helped me free myself from this feeling of guilt. So if someone says you're so selfish because you always only care about yourself, right? Now, the person who says this to you, what do they want? Who do they want you to care about, if not yourself?
Them.
Them. So who's the selfish one then? That's the conclusion I've come to. And everyone wants to be the one others pay attention to. I'm sure of it. Muted, if I may kindly ask. Very good. Thank you. Absolutely everything is fine. Everything is fine. Thank you very much. So I've already asked this tonight, but who among those present here has ever been a child? Then a few people timidly raised their hands, hoping that after the break, everyone would admit it. So who among those present here has ever been a child? Oh, you're wonderful. Seriously. Now almost everyone has raised their hand. But maybe you can still remember that state, that period of time when this is how we looked at ourselves. When it was like, oh, how wonderful, how beautiful, my God, what a miracle I am. How great it is that I was born, right? And self-love, which I love to talk about, is a very difficult and hard to digest topic in Hungary today. Yet self-love, this is a very important point I'm making now. Is not egoism. Self-love is our most natural duty, our absolute obligation to love ourselves. If we don't do this, then we're not truly living. If we don't love ourselves, we can't be happy. It's impossible. If you don't love the person you are, then what's the point of having a big car, a small phone, or any amount of success in life? No matter how many girlfriends, boyfriends, houses, or professional achievements you have, you can't be truly, completely happy. You can't, because that emptiness will always be there. And often, people who don't love themselves achieve outstanding results precisely because they're trying to fill that lack of self-love by getting validation from the outside world, by hearing, yes, you're good. The love they don't give themselves, they expect from others, and for that they're willing to do anything. I think it's really worth addressing this somehow, for example, by learning to love ourselves. In theory, it's easy, and in theory, most of us would get top marks for it, so that's absolutely how it works. And there comes a point where you really do tip over and actually start to love yourself. And I have a few tips on what you should do to feel that you are important in your own life. While we're at it, Who is the most important person in your life? Yes, a lot of people who are like black belts in self-development immediately answer, I am. In my own life, I am. But is that really how you think about yourself? Is that really how you think about yourself? And now, I'm going to share a couple of tips that I personally have done. So once again, I'm standing here in front of you having actually done these things, and I know they work because I've experienced a huge change in the way I relate to myself. The first piece of advice I have is this. Put yourself in neutral. This basically means that if you're constantly chasing performance and recognition, you'll end up burning out and you won't be able to appreciate anything anymore. Even the balance in your bank account will just become a number. Achievements and successes, whether in sports or anything else, it won't be enough anymore. It's like you're on drugs, right? And the same dose isn't enough anymore. You always need more. It's not enough that now I'm the best in the county. Now I have to be the best in the whole country. But even that isn't enough anymore. And in order for you to finally start being first in your own life, sometimes you have to break away from all of this. No matter what you do, no matter what you're doing, and especially when you feel like you have the least time for it, that's exactly when you need to break away. And put yourself in neutral. I suggest you find an activity where you are the first priority in your own life, because you all say that you are the most important person in your own life. Well then, declare it. Specifically, who here has a calendar? Who doesn't have one? Let me put it this way instead. So that person is a free spirit, apparently. This also reminds me, who here has a mobile phone? Who doesn't have one? No one? Who doesn't have one? Everyone has one, so just look around and see who it is. It's almost like someone without a mobile phone is an alien or something. Imagine, I once attended a real estate course, and the presenter told us that he had met someone who didn't have a mobile phone. And everyone was looking at him like, oh, come on, are you serious? Is this person really from this planet? And imagine, yes, because this man's dream was that if he could reach the point where he could live off his real estate investments, that was what drove him, then he would go out to a field and like a shot putter, throw his mobile phone away without even looking where it landed. And the man actually did this. And what happened was that Norby, who told me this story, was talking with this man and said, wow, we could do a lot of great things together. Let's exchange phone numbers. And the man replied, oh, I don't have one. What do you mean you don't have one? Well, I don't need one. I can see now that this is light years away from many of us. So, if you have a calendar and you are the number one in your own life, then please take it out and check where you have scheduled yourself in, amidst all your many programs. When do you meet with yourself? I think there are a lot of you who are constantly scheduling appointments, whether you're a salesperson or whatever your perspective or purpose may be. And often, this comes up during personal consultations as well. Okay, show me your calendar. Well, look, anyone who's been working with me for a while already colors themselves in. Well, look, 14 hours a day, it's just, ugh. I say, okay, but where are you in your own calendar? Oh, but I'm the most important. That's why I work so much. I say, no, we're sitting on the horse backwards. So if you are the most important person in your life, then create time blocks when you can be with yourself. Not with your child, not with your partner, but with yourself. And this is when people will tell you that you are selfish. I call this, sorry, not just me. I didn't come up with it. That's called me time. I suggest that if you really want your relationship with yourself to change in a positive direction, to grow, and thus move toward happiness, in your calendar, assign a specific time block and mark it, whether digitally or however you prefer, as me. Just write those two letters, me. You can even add a smiley face if you like. Write down me. When I started doing this, it was 1 hour a week. 1 hour a week was my me time. Now every week I have a whole me day. Excuse me? So what do I do then? Well, sometimes I watch the Godfather trilogy in my pajamas. Sometimes I go to the movies on a Wednesday at noon. Sometimes I'm the only one. in the theater, and it feels good. And it feels good when I go to the ticket counter on a Wednesday at noon and ask for a movie ticket. And then I say to myself, yes, because I deserve it, because I come first. Sometimes I go to get a manicure or a massage, whatever I feel like. It's all about, if I feel like it, then I go, to use a nice Hungarian word, shopping or whatever. So I pamper myself, whatever feels good. And listen, oh, how nice. Oh, how nice that you asked. Thank you so much. It just came to my mind over the weekend when I was sitting in the jacuzzi that, listen, here comes the point. I mean, my God, what a life I have. And it was 190 forints per week. So there I was, sitting in the Finnish sauna or alone in the jacuzzi. The 12-person one, all by myself, in a really beautiful place. And the entrance fee was only 790 forints. I couldn't believe it. So when someone talks to you and asks, how do you have so much money for this? We're looking at it the wrong way. Or there are people who go to observatories, of course, right? He's filling the mash, just the watch. When I see someone at the store buying half a liter of hard liquor and things like that, I say to myself, how do they have money for that? Now that's science. And when they say, I live on minimum wage, I say, but you can still afford this. Congratulations. So this is serious. So thank you for asking, because it's not always about that. By the way, this was in Budapest for 7 or 90 forints. You see, oh, well, everything is expensive here in Pest. Of course, you can go to places like that. I also go to places where it's not this price. But it wasn't that I sacrificed quality to go here. I just went there, and it was totally fine. So often, it's actually harder to find the time. And it's more about the feeling of, oh, wait, I have so much to do. I don't have time for this. When I first did a me day, I felt so guilty, thinking about how many things I could be doing right now. And here I am just lounging around instead of getting things done. But this is where it all begins. Start with just 1 hour a week, and soon you'll feel its power, and you'll start to expand it. And now comes my most radical suggestion, which might even get me in trouble here. Travel somewhere alone. Even if you have a family. I regularly go away, even though I have 2 beautiful children and an equally beautiful wife. And I say, okay, now I'm going away alone for a few days. Of course, I take them with me on another occasion. This doesn't mean that only I go and they don't, but rather that sometimes I go alone because I need to spend time with myself. Abraham Maslow said that people's main problem is that throughout their entire lives, they don't spend even half an hour alone. And it's really true that many people say, but I have the kids, there's work, there's this and that, it's just work, work, work. And then they say, but actually, I'm the most important person in my life. Well, of course, it's easy to say. Because in order for the world to treat you well, you have to treat yourself well too. That's where it starts. My next piece of advice is to live in the present. Now, this is again one of those spiritual things, like it's only meant for Tibetan monks, if they're humming in lotus position. But in reality, it's simply about becoming aware of how beautiful the world is, how much beauty there is in life. This picture is one of those things for which I am really grateful to the internet. Right? And here I am talking about TV again. Sorry, it's just that this so perfectly symbolizes how beautiful the world is, and we don't even notice it. We just don't notice it. In order to become aware of how much beauty there is, sometimes all you need to do is simply set out on foot somewhere, take a walk, and start. Not just looking, but actually seeing the trees, the sunshine. You have to pay attention to these things, to the chirping of the birds. You start to notice things that you otherwise wouldn't. Often our perspective can become so narrowed in the hustle and bustle of everyday life that we forget about the great beauty surrounding us. And believe me, if you rewire yourself in this regard as well, you won't be dwelling on petty life problems, but you'll start to see the beauty of life. And again, it comes down to thoughts, emotions, actions, results. If your thoughts are about how much beauty there is in life, then you will start to notice it. And I'll go even further in explaining how you can become aware of this. For example, walk barefoot. I'm not saying you have to do it on Vati Street, but actually you could do it there too. Why not? It's simply about feeling the ground, being aware of how good it feels when it's cold, how good it feels when it's warm, how interesting it is when something pricks you a little. The point is, our senses have simply become dulled. And in order to really be able to live, in fact, for example, this morning, with my two sons, every morning starts like this when I sleep at home. If I'm here and not abroad, it starts with me being in the living room, doing my thing, and then my two sons come out one after the other. Both of them lie down in my lap, and for about 15 minutes, they just snuggle there. And I keep telling them what a gift they are in my life. Thank you for being born. You are wonderful people. So I say these things sincerely. And of course they feel it. That's why they lie there, because there is a sense of calm radiating. And today, for example, I noticed, and it felt so good, that I became aware of the way they breathe softly. Just lying there like that. That little gentle fluffiness. It's wonderful. And it's from these little things that the feeling comes together when you say, I'm so glad to be alive. Of course, if someone doesn't have a child right now, they might say, okay, but then who should I borrow a child from so they can rest in my lap? Or mine is already 38 years old. Now, can I really tell them, come on, sit in my lap for a bit, breathe here for me, snuggle up to my shoulder for a while. So, what now? So of course, in that case, you have to find something else for yourself. But believe me, you also have the opportunity in your life to finally start noticing its beauty. And don't just focus on the fact that another bill has arrived. I'll talk about this as well. My next piece of advice is to stop worrying. Who among those present here tends to worry? The majority, yes. Earlier today, I talked about programming in the sense that work is seen as a necessary evil, or that you can't really make a living from it. And there are similar beliefs like these. And there's also something related to worrying that keeps this whole thing alive. And that's the following. There will be consequences to this. If there will be consequences, what does that imply? If something is just starting to go well, be careful, be careful. Don't be happy for too long. You know, it's exactly that feeling. When you live your life thinking, oh no, this is too good to be true. No, that's not necessarily a good direction. It's not certain that this can go on. How long can this last? How long can it be this good? Surely the hard times have to come. Fasting is definitely what it should be. And what I usually say when I notice this happening at the level of this program is, wait a second. Do you remember when I talked about awareness? So the whole thing is about catching yourself in the act. You catch yourself worrying here. You catch yourself as these old programs get triggered. That's when you need to become aware immediately and say, wait, I need to replace this now on the level of thought. And the emotion changes as well. So when I notice this, like, wow, guys, I'm already scheduling lectures for 2015. That's true. And then I say, wow, so how far can this go? And then I say, it's going to get even better than this. Or it can also be in the form of a question, like, how could it get even better than this? And then people say, oh, that's because you're insatiable, that's why. It's true, you get these kinds of responses from your surroundings. Now it's like, oh, but everything has its limits. This can't go on any longer. It just can't get any better than this. Of course. There's a quote in my book, well, there are many, but the one I'm mentioning now comes from an entrepreneur from Miskolc, who once said, when he was on top, how does it continue? Once on top? Well, he puts it like this. Once on top, or then even higher. And when you catch yourself saying once on top, once on the bottom, quickly switch it to this instead. Even higher next time. How could it get even better than this? If we start to think that life truly is a miracle, a blessing, then this worrying begins to subside. It starts to subside. Again, this is an automatic process. Every family has a professional worrier, a black belt. Usually it's the mothers. And they pass this down from generation to generation. And there are these typical phrases, for example. When a mother says goodbye to her child and says, take care of yourself. Now, why should you have to take care? Is there some danger or what? No, I'm just saying it because I love you. Well, let's take a closer look at this. So I say to you, who here has seen a child running? Yeah. And then the mother says, be careful, you're going to fall. What does the child do? He immediately falls flat on his face. And what does the parent say very wisely at that moment? Didn't I tell you? The child had no intention of falling. Be careful, don't fall. It's possible to fall. Bang! That's it. When you say goodbye to someone and tell them to take care, you're triggering the same thing. The idea that something bad might happen is only suggested subconsciously, not consciously, because no one says it for that reason. That's not why they say it. Instead, say something like, have a nice day, have a good trip. Another one is, call me when you arrive. Well, that's typical too. By the way, worrying is a very interesting thing, because if you worry about your loved ones, who here has heard something like this when a parent says, take care of yourself? Because if something happened to you, I couldn't survive it. So, who is this really about? Once again. So these games work in a pretty interesting way. I make everyone aware of these things so I can take the whole burden off myself, so I know what I actually owe, what responsibilities I really have, and so on. All right? By the way, my magic question, the one that has helped me the most to stop worrying, Ada, goes like this. Will this still matter at all in 10 years? Think about what you're worrying about right now. And ask yourself, will this still matter at all in 10 years? You're sitting in traffic, and you have to be somewhere on time. It's a very important meeting. You'll get fired if you don't make it. A deal slips away, whatever it is. You're sitting in traffic, and you say, oh my God, I can't believe this. Why won't they move? Come on, let's go, let's go. What's going on? And will this still matter at all in 10 years? Believe me, it won't. Think about what you were worrying about 10 years ago. In February 2003, I got my first real job. The first one that really counted. That was 10 years ago. And everything that's happened since then, well, it's the same in your life. Think about what things were like 10 years ago, and then imagine how, compared to that, in 10 years this will be. Nothing. You put things into a different perspective. And here's another bizarre piece of advice. No? If you start worrying about something, raise the stakes or imagine an even worse situation. Let me give you an example. You go out to the parking lot and find a wheel clamp on your car. You say, oh my God, I can't believe this. Then say, yeah, but what if they had stolen the car? Oh, there's just a wheel clamp on it. Okay, believe me, it works. So now you might say, oh, this is so silly, this little, but it's a kind of self-deception, so you take the edge off your worrying. For me, when I had a car accident in 2001, it bothered me for a very long time. Now, one of my legs is about 3 centimeters shorter than the other, and I was really worried about this, that this isn't right. And then I started thinking, what if they had to amputate my leg? Oh, it's only 3 centimeters shorter. How great. How great, I still have both of them. So this is one of those things when you start to appreciate that only this happened, that it was just this much. You can apply this to anything consciously. So when you start thinking about so when the worrying starts, when it begins, catch it right away. And either ask yourself, will this even matter in 10 years? And then say, or put yourself in a situation where it could have been worse than this. Be glad that this is all that happened. And you start to feel happy about it. Believe me, try it, it works. Now you're looking at me with big eyes. It works. These are just my suggestions. Write them down and voila. By the way, what I've packed together for you here today will be like a pebble in your shoe. At some point, you'll notice it pressing again. And maybe in half a year, you'll remember, oh, right, there was something like this mentioned here. It's not like you'll wake up tomorrow morning and, wow, I've never been this happy before. Wow, it doesn't even matter what's happened to me. Yeah, right. Yesterday I was at that lecture. It doesn't work like that. This is a process. But let me give you an example. Again, a personal example. The company name is mentioned on purpose because normally I don't do negative campaigns. But this was so serious that Air France really messed with me to an unbelievable extent. Of course, I'm the one responsible. Here's what happened. So I was coming home from Canada and had a layover in Paris. Obviously, it was Air France. And I missed my connection. I wandered around between the terminals and so on. And oh shit, the plane went down. I go to the Air France counter and say, sorry, but I missed my connection. They smile and say, no problem, you'll just take the next one. I say, well, that's what I thought too, of course. And then they say, well, it's just that it'll be 700 euros. But I say, what? I just missed it here. The flight just left. Now I'll take the next one. Well, yes, but that will be 700 euros. But of course you can go. There's a seat. We'll make sure of it. 700 euros. But I say, that's a lot. So something's not right. And then I say, no, we couldn't come to an agreement. Okay, I say, then I'd like my suitcases. So please give me my luggage and then I'll decide what I want to do. They say they'll gladly give it to me. 400 euros. I say, what? Well, because the suitcase, because I'm interrupting its journey, the whole logistics of it, and that comes with a cost. Specifically 400 euros. Well, I say, that sounds really bad. So either I go home for 700 or I'll be standing here with 2 suitcases for 400. These are 2 truly fantastic options. And then I said that I'm starting to get annoyed now. And I voiced that in English as well. I thought I didn't know English, but I learned it instantly. I learned English right away. And I explained, and they said, oh, but you're a frequent flyer, aren't you? And I said, yes. But I'm a very loyal frequent flyer there. And then they said, well, in that case, you can go for 500. But before that, they said there was no way I could go for less than 700. As soon as I raised my voice, I looked like a frequent flyer, and they said I could go for 500. So I said, if for 400 I could have 2 suitcases next to me here, and for 500 I could go home, then I'd rather go home. Now let's multiply that. 150,000 forints, which is okay. I zoned out. Honestly, I'm the one responsible. It's all on me. But still, 150,000 forints. And this really bothered me. And after that, I kept chewing on it for a bit. Then I remembered, think of an even worse situation. And I told myself, well, at least the plane didn't crash. Now, 500 euros. Well, that's just how it turned out for me. So it works. Believe me when I say, oh, I have everything I need. In fact, my suitcases weren't even stolen. How lucky I am. There's something called the worry pyramid. This worry pyramid is about how you can only worry about something until a bigger worry comes along. Let me give you an example. If it bothers you that your partner snores, for instance, it will bother you as long as they're snoring until, say, the curtain in the living room catches fire. Because then you're no longer bothered by the snoring, since you're worried about something much more serious. So this imagine a worse situation approach does the same thing, just in a fictional way. It gets you to start thinking in a different direction. And then you say, oh, well, it's actually good. At least they're only snoring. Let them snore, but how sweet it is. By the way, it's really interesting how as the years and decades go by, in a marriage, I see that there's that pair of lovebirds when they're cooing in the ballroom, feeding each other strawberries and things like that. Oh, it's so nice to watch how sweet they are. And then she says, my darling munches so adorably. 20 years later, it's, listen to this pig smacking his lips, right? So remember, what happened? Now it bothers you. Now we start to here's a connection, but I don't want to waste time on it right now. This is yet another one of those internet inventions. In the end, it always comes down to the fact that there's no point in worrying because either you can solve it or you can't. If you can solve it, then don't worry about it. If you can't, then don't either. But if you can't solve it, then there's nothing you can do about it anyway. And here is a brilliant diagram that you can also use if you're worried about something. So if you find yourself worrying about something, then you need to ask yourself the following question. You need to ask yourself whether you have any influence over that particular thing. Here are the 2 circles you see. This larger one is the circle of concern. So if you're worried about something, it means it concerns you. It might not concern someone else. Let me give you an example. Someone tells you that, okay, supposedly the Swiss franc is going to rise to 800 forints. A large portion of the adult Hungarian population who are potential borrowers are affected by foreign currency-based loans. And then, of course, their heart starts beating faster, thinking, oh, wow, that wouldn't be so good, would it? Or if they've already let go of the whole thing a long time ago, then that's a different matter altogether. But if someone is interested in, say, how long the exchange rate will keep changing, then what they need to ask is whether they can have any influence over it. Can I have any influence over whether the Swiss franc will reach 800 forints? Can I influence it? Is it worth worrying about it then? Another example. If you look at fuel prices, by the way, I was just thinking about this today. While I was sitting in traffic, how there was such an uproar when the price of gasoline went over 100 forints. I don't know if you remember this. There was a taxi blockade, and I don't know, a taxi strike. And now, so quietly and gradually, we're already over 400, and yet there are so many cars on the road, it's unbelievable. Oh, and nobody has any money? So this is the other thing I really don't understand, how these two things go together. By the way, regarding traffic jams, for example, I usually tell myself when I'm sitting in a jam that at least the jam isn't getting any longer in front of me. So in front of me, the jam isn't growing anymore, right? Or is it? No, not in front of me anymore. That already gives me some encouragement. So if I have to look for something positive, I focus on the fact that in front of me, the jam won't get any bigger. Anyway, getting back to the point, if you're thinking about how much further fuel prices can be increased, since that affects bread, milk, getting the kids to school, and so on everything, then ask yourself whether you can have any influence over it. Like, what will the fuel price be in 2 years? Because you get worked up about it with your neighbor, like, and if those bastards raise it to 800, that's just not right. That's true. You're right, and you feel completely down. And you gave that certain someone a slap, but you haven't gotten any further ahead. So my suggestion is, if you come to the conclusion that you have no influence over it, then don't worry about it. Instead, ask yourself, how you could have an influence on it. For example, when I was thinking about this, let's say about the exchange rate or fuel prices. Let's stick with fuel as an example. He said, Chioko, can I influence how much fuel will cost? That I cannot. But whether I can go to the gas station and say, fill it up, please, that I can influence. Because it's the income side that needs to be influenced, not how much the fuel will cost. Mark Twain, with his characteristic humor, saw the world of worries like this. I am an old man and have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened. If you look at it, the vast majority of worries will never actually happen. Never. Find the good in everything. It's very interesting that most Hungarian people only see the hole in the donut, but really they can find that tiny thing. That's not good in everything. What is there to criticize about it? Let me share another personal example about this. This picture only served to remind me that, I want to tell this story. A few weeks ago, I went into a gas station to buy a highway sticker. There were huge lines at both cash registers. It occurred to me then that, at least the line isn't getting any longer in front of me, so that's already a positive. And then the line started to move, and meanwhile I noticed that there was only one lady working behind the counter. There was a lady working at each of the two cash registers, and honestly, she was working so fast, like in a samurai movie. If someone paid by card at one register, she would ask at the other, cash? Yes. She'd step over, take the payment, process it, and then go back. So really that fast. And the whole time I kept thinking, my God, what a blessing this woman is for us. How she looks out for and respects our time like this. And every time it's my turn, I make sure to take the opportunity to tell her, hey, listen, thank you so much for doing it so quickly, for handling two registers at once all by yourself. And I wish you a really nice rest of your day. And then he says, is that really how I see it? That's so nice, I ask. Why? Well, yesterday there was a man here. The two lines were just like this. I was alone again because of the layoffs. I was alone at both counters. And then he paid by bank card. While the terminal was reading the card, I stepped over to the other customer to take their cash. And by the time I got back, he was furious, saying how disrespectful it was to leave him in the middle of paying. You can't treat him like this, so he immediately demands the complaint book, and says he will report her. And proceedings were initiated against the lady. It's the same situation. And this is when I tell you, thoughts, emotions, actions, results. In the exact same situation, we see something completely different, people. Find the good in everything. What is it that is good for you? In this, why is it good? Me, when it comes to traffic jams. So the reason I talk so much about traffic jams is because I used to have a really hard time dealing with them. And now I'm really glad that I can listen to audio materials, that I slow down a bit and listen to music, whatever. All right? And Hungarian mentality in general really is about conspiracy theories. So what is a paranoid person like? What do you think about yourself? What do they think about the world, especially a paranoid person? Yes, that the world has conspired to make things bad for them. I suggest that you become an inverse paranoid and always think about what's good for you in this. Why is this happening this way? What good could come out of this for you? One of the biggest negative experiences of my past 2 years, in retrospect, I now experience as something absolutely very positive. Absolutely. I don't want to tell the story because it's personal, but at the time when I went through it, it was very hard for me. And afterwards, looking back, I'm really, really glad it happened. One more piece of advice. Accept impermanence. When I ask at lectures like this who is afraid of death, only a few people raise their hands. In one-on-one conversations, however, this ratio changes. And I have to say, from this perspective, you have to accept as a fact that you won't get out of this alive anyway. I was terrified of death for a very long time until I realized that I was actually thinking about how I could somehow avoid it. I mean, I haven't seen anyone succeed yet, but maybe I will. And I have to admit, unfortunately, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, it's not that simple that you can just decide to skip it. So what is certain is that we are going to die. And the other day, I went into a bookstore and I saw a whole bunch of books about what happens after death, right? So everyone is concerned about what happens after death. And does heaven exist? And I'm telling you from the other side, and so on and so forth. There are a ton of books like that. And it's interesting. No one is afraid of death, yet everyone is reading these thinking, oh my God, what will happen? And I suggest that instead of focusing on what happens after death, we should look at what happens before death. So this is what we should really be paying attention to, because I have some brilliant news for all of us. There is life before death. This is wonderful news. Just think about it. By the way, this is also the title of my new book. And I suggest that you be grateful. People often ask me, well, why should I be grateful for this? Well, I say to you that if in the morning when you wake up, you start consciously paying attention and gather at least 3 things, thinking, now in this situation, what can I be grateful for? Let me share my own examples with you. When I open my eyes in the morning, I start by saying thank you. Thank you for the trust that my eyes could open. Just imagine if one day it didn't happen. Of course, there are people who are at a stage where they would actually be glad. Well, not that my eyes wouldn't open, although maybe, but rather in relation to their own wishing it would already be that way. Many people throw away their lives because they can't find any meaning in it. But for those who still have that instinct, who still want, Andras Feldmar was very tough about this, and I love him for it. He said, look, if you're hesitating about whether you want to live, if you can't decide right now, then what do you want to do with your life? Then go to a mountain lodge for a week. Take something really sharp with you that you could use to kill yourself and make your decision there. Either don't come back or come back and then start living. Harsh, isn't it? Really? Well, look, so I know. I was standing on the roof about to jump. And I thought of the whole thing as a kind of salvation. And now, looking back, I feel like, my God, what would I have missed out on? Because I started to let go of what others say. I don't care. And I began to live life full throttle because I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well live before that. At night, before going to bed, ask yourself, what was the best thing that happened to me today? Wow, my little son gave me a kiss. That was really nice too. What else? Yes, both of my kids. Good. So this is how you can do it. Or you could say, someone let me cut in line, or I caught all green lights, or whatever. So you can say anything. Like, I was finally able to spend a little time on myself. I scheduled some me time and actually managed to keep it. Anything at all. If you start consciously thinking about this, wonderful things will start happening to you. I suggest you have a gratitude stone. This will help you because when you reach into your pocket and find this stone there, you'll think, what the heck is this in my pocket? And then you'll say, oh, right, this pebble is actually my gratitude stone. So what can I be grateful for right now? And then you start looking around in your life. This question is really great. What can I be grateful for right now? And I say that we can play this kind of game with objects as well. For example, here's a chair. A chair. But you can relate to any object in 3 different ways. You can be hostile towards it, like, why is this chair so damn uncomfortable? You can't even sit on it. I've been sitting here for 2 hours. It's unbelievable. My back is killing me because of it. You can be neutral about it. You just say, it's a chair. So what about it? A chair? A chair. This is a chair. The one next to it is also a chair. They're all chairs. Right? Or you can say that. You think of it with affection and say, this is a chair I can sit on. My God, I could have been standing this whole time, and how wonderful it is when it serves me. Well, that's a gift. You rewire the whole thing. Another example. Shoes. Someone says, these crappy shoes, the soles are already worn out. I don't like these shoes anymore. Oh, but it would be nice to buy a new one. Or you say, well, shoes are shoes. This is a shoe. That's a shoe, right? That's the neutral version. Or you say, how great, I have shoes. And then, of course, it goes even further. I have feet to put them on. And gratitude starts to spread within you like this. And you have to start somewhere by becoming aware of something. Something that happens around you, some object you come into contact with. 3, always, always, always. Pay attention to this. There are 3 ways you can relate to an object: with hostility, with neutrality, or with love. Notice it. Catch yourself when you start to complain about something. I was like that with a toothbrush. I love toothbrushes. If I could, I would try every single one in the store before buying, because I really love a good toothbrush, you know, when it's like that. But you can't. Although there were times when I was tempted to do it, and I bought a toothbrush. I could hardly wait to get home and open it. Well, it was a disappointment. This isn't like... And then I started asking, why the heck did I buy this toothbrush? And then I said, wait a minute, this actually cleans my teeth nicely. How great is it that I have a toothbrush? I have teeth. I have a place to brush them. I have water. I have toothpaste. Wow, that's great. And then it starts to become this kind of spiral thing. All right? It's a very interesting thought again, to be grateful when you spend money. Because when you have to pay a bill, just think about the fact that you received a service in return. So if you have to pay the electricity bill, it means you didn't live in the dark for a month. So start appreciating it this way and say, I'm so grateful. How many billions of people live without lights? I got this, I got it. I have it. The electricity is connected. The power, is in my house. Start thinking differently about those things. When you catch yourself getting worked up again, like, oh, here it is again, then turn it around. Catch yourself, switch it, and start moving in that direction. Give thanks every morning. I think this could be an important point. And why should you give thanks? Start thinking about what it is that life cannot exist without. What is it that life cannot exist without? Air. Air. So just start becoming aware of the fact that, oh, wait a minute, am I getting air? By the way, my relationship with the abundance shifted right here when I started to become aware of this in connection with air. If the universe, God, or whatever you call it, is constantly giving you air, so what else wouldn't you give? Why wouldn't it give you something else? With air, it's not like, hey, Adam, you can only take 3 more breaths. I'm watching you. There's no such thing. And the idea of letting go to feel how much you deserve this. When you exhale, do you ever wonder if there will be a next breath? You don't hold on to it, you exhale, because you know there's more. You should think the same way when you spend money. This doesn't mean you should squander everything you have right now. Just simply feel that the universe takes care of you and more will come. Connect it with your breath. I'll share one more point and then I'll thank you for your kind attention, okay? And that is, don't argue. Well, actually one more, so 2 in total, because the last one, I really, really, really love it and I really want to share it. Don't argue. When an argument breaks out, it's a good thing I don't make a living from speaking. So when an argument is starting to develop, this sounds better. When an argument is starting to develop, ask yourself this question that you see written here. Is my relationship important, or is it more important to be right? Is my relationship with that person important, or is it more important to be right? With my wife, whom I adore, she's a goddess, we managed to argue about the most ridiculous things. It's just unbelievable. Like about the toothbrush. I mean, does it seem like I have some kind of quirk? Or why put it in the glass? Why not next to it? Or the other way around? It doesn't matter at all. Does it really make a difference? None whatsoever. I love her way too much to argue over something so silly. And often it's things like this that kill your happiness. Believe me, because you start winding yourself up now, and then the nervousness and worry just flow through you, so that afterwards you're like a sulky little kitten heading into the woods thinking, oh, what a terrible day I'm having. Oh, I just want to kick someone. Oh, I'm so fed up with the world. And then a good fairy comes up to you. Piglet, you can make a wish. Drop dead. So even when the opportunity is right there. And that's how it works in everyday life. And take a look at what is the same in all your relationships. There is only one factor. Shall I help you? Here's a mirror. And if I had as much time as I don't have right now, I would share with you 5+1 magic questions about how you can best nurture the relationships that matter to you. So my last piece of advice, which believe me could be the main key to your happiness, is to love people. First and foremost, love the person you will spend your whole life with. Yourself. Dare to love and love other people as well. We don't dare to show our feelings. What I see is that right now there is a huge alienation happening in the world. We don't know who our neighbors are. We don't talk to our friends. We neglect our human relationships, both our relationship with ourselves and with others. There are many reasons for this. Again, we could say it's the fast-paced world, or Facebook, where you can do things impersonally and don't have to meet in person. One thing is certain, just in childhood, you mentioned that everyone was once a child. You might remember the proportions, how it looked, how much we lived from our hearts as children there, and how much we dare to listen to our hearts as adults. Lately, this has really become my pet topic, to talk about this, because deep down, everyone secretly longs to love and to be loved. And the question is, how much do we dare to do this? Think about it. When what we call life on BSA eventually comes to an end, how much will you regret not daring to love and not daring to let yourself be loved? I often see that when someone is approached with love, they quickly close themselves off. And it's very interesting that people nowadays build walls around themselves instead of building bridges between each other. And as a result, we live in melancholy, even though we are social beings by nature. In the past, when people lived in tribes, there wasn't, just as even now, among socially less developed peoples, there isn't such stress or cancer or whatever else. So they gather together, talk things out by the campfire, and everyone dares to say, I love you, you are a good person. And nowadays, you hardly ever hear things like that. Because in reality, we are all just little children dressed in adult skin. So even though we wear bigger armor, our hearts are still longing for it. That's why we're willing to do so many things, just so that someone will finally tell us that we are lovable, and maybe we think this will be expressed through money, or maybe through some other form of recognition, but at its core, that's what it's about. Everyone longs for this. Everything we do is for this, to be loved and to be able to love as well. We yearn to be able to love. And love is the most essential nourishment for a human being. Nothing else compares. If only there were love. Love sustains the entire world. And the root of everything can be traced back to the lack of love. Tonight, I've talked about a lot of things and given advice you can incorporate into your life. But if you do just one thing, if you dare to love, the first time I looked an adult man in the eye and said, I love you, his reaction was very strange, and the reaction of those around us was even more so. This happened again not so long ago when, after a workout, I was heading to the showers with my friend Zsolti. Of course, we weren't wearing much, and there were these guys with similar builds in there. They were all washing themselves. And as we're walking in, I say to him, you know, Zsolti, I really love you. So we're walking together, and people are looking at us like things are heating up in here, even though, honestly, I just mean it in a human, friendly way. And ever since I've dared to admit this, ever since I've dared to tell people, and I encourage them to say, I love you. I watch a lot of fairy tales with my sons, the kind that are already censored beforehand, and mostly in the cinema. And not so long ago, we watched Epic. I don't know if anyone has seen it. Green Lords. It's a really great little fairy tale. There are some very deep thoughts in these stories. One of them was that one of the leaf men, a little cartoon character, says, don't forget, there are lots of leaves, but only one tree. In reality, that's exactly what it's about. We all long for the same thing. We've just started to separate ourselves from each other. And my master teaches that only life is what quickly slips away. What we have done with love in it, that remains forever. I live my life in this faith, in this spirit. And I encourage you all to dare to do the same. One first step could be that when you approach someone, you look them in the eye and say, you are a wonderful person. By doing this, you give them something that brightens their day, brightens their life, and believe me, if you hear it yourself, it will brighten yours too. And now, at the end of this evening, the time has come for the dress rehearsal. Now I ask everyone to please stand up, now look at least 5 people in the eye, and say to them, you are a wonderful person. For the advanced, you can give a hug too, okay? Thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a wonderful evening. All the best to you. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.